What's going on, history lovers? Welcome back to the channel where we uncover the incredible stories of unsung Black heroes who changed America forever. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell because we're diving deep into stories that should be taught in every history class, but somehow got left out of the textbooks. Today's story is absolutely mind-blowing. We're talking about a man who literally stole a Confederate warship, became a Civil War hero, and then went on to serve in Congress. And if you've never heard of Robert Smalls, you're about to discover why his story is one of the most incredible tales of courage and brilliance in American history. Picture this. It's May 13th, 1862, in the middle of the Civil War. A young enslaved man stands at the helm of a Confederate steamship, wearing a stolen captain's hat and coat. As dawn breaks over Charleston Harbor, he's about to pull off one of the most daring escapes in American history. An escape that would make him a war hero, a politician, and one of the most remarkable figures you've probably never heard of. This is the story of Robert Smalls, a man who transformed from property into a congressman, from slave to war hero, and whose incredible journey challenges everything we think we know about courage, intelligence, and the fight for freedom in America. Robert Smalls was born into slavery on April 5th, 1839, in Beaufort, South Carolina. His mother, Lydia Polite, worked as a house slave for the McKee family, and Robert never knew his father, though many believed it was Henry McKee, the plantation owner's son. From an early age, Robert was different. While most enslaved children were kept ignorant of the world beyond the plantation, Robert's mother made sure he understood exactly what slavery meant. She would take him to see slave auctions, to witness whippings, and to observe the harsh realities that awaited him. This wasn't cruelty, it was preparation. Lydia wanted her son to understand that his current comfortable position as a house slave could change at any moment. At age 12, Robert was sent to Charleston to work for the Lambson family. This move would prove pivotal to his future. In Charleston, Robert was exposed to a bustling port city where he learned about ships, navigation, and most importantly, he observed how the city's defenses worked. He took various jobs, working in a hotel, as a lamplighter, and eventually on the docks where he became intimately familiar with Charleston's waterways and Confederate naval operations. By his late teens, Robert had married Hannah Jones, an enslaved woman who worked as a hotel maid. Together, they had two children, Elizabeth and Robert Jr. The young family lived with the constant fear that they could be separated and sold at any time. This fear, combined with Robert's growing knowledge of the harbor and his natural leadership abilities, began to plant the seeds of an audacious plan. In 1861, Robert was assigned to work aboard the CSS Planter, a Confederate transport steamship. The Planter was used to move supplies, weapons, and troops around Charleston Harbor, and it played a crucial role in the Confederate defense of the city. Robert served under Captain Charles Raleigh, a white man who treated him relatively well, but who had no idea that his enslaved crew member was memorizing every detail of their operations. Robert learned the ship's whistle signals, the locations of underwater mines, the strength of various Confederate fortifications, and most importantly, the daily routines and passwords needed to navigate past Confederate checkpoints. He was essentially conducting reconnaissance while appearing to be just another enslaved worker. The opportunity Robert had been waiting for came on the night of May 12th, 1862. Captain Raleigh and the other white officers decided to spend the night ashore, leaving the ship in the hands of the enslaved crew, a common practice that no one thought twice about. But Robert Smalls had been thinking about it for months. Around 3 a.m. on May 13th, Robert put his plan into motion. First, he sailed the Planter to a nearby wharf where his wife Hannah, their two children, and 12 other enslaved people, including his mother, were waiting. The group had been secretly planning this escape for weeks. Now came the most dangerous part. Robert put on Captain Reliea's uniform and hat, and with his intimate knowledge of the captain's mannerisms, he began to impersonate him. The planter had to pass 5 Confederate checkpoints to reach the Union blockade ships waiting outside the harbor. At each checkpoint, Robert stood on deck in the captain's uniform, gave the proper whistle signals, and waved casually at the Confederate guards. His heart must have been pounding, knowing that discovery meant death not just for him, but for everyone aboard. One suspicious guard, one wrong signal, one moment of hesitation, and the plan would collapse. The most nerve-wracking moment came at Fort Sumter. Yes, the same Fort Sumter where the Civil War began. As the planter approached, Robert gave the appropriate whistle signals and sailed past the massive guns that could have destroyed his ship in seconds. The Confederate soldiers waved back, completely unaware that they had just been fooled by an enslaved man in a stolen uniform. As soon as the planter was out of range of Confederate guns, Robert hauled down the Confederate flag and raised a white bedsheet as a flag of surrender. When Union ships spotted them, Robert shouted across the water, "Good morning, sir. I've brought you some of the old United States guns, sir," referring to the artillery pieces the planter was carrying. The intelligence Robert provided to the Union Navy was invaluable. He gave them detailed maps of Charleston Harbor, information about Confederate troop movements, and the locations of underwater mines and fortifications. The CSS Planter itself became a Union vessel, and Robert was appointed as its captain, making him one of the first black ship captains in the U.S. Navy. But Robert's service went far beyond that single daring escape. He continued to captain the Planter throughout the war, participating in 17 naval battles and military operations. In one particularly heroic moment, when the white captain of another Union vessel abandoned his post under fire, Robert took command and successfully completed the mission. His bravery earned him recognition from the highest levels of government. He met with President Abraham Lincoln and Secretary of War Edwin Stanton, advocating for the enlistment of black soldiers. Robert argued that enslaved people had intimate knowledge of Southern geography and Confederate operations that could be invaluable to the Union cause. The financial reward for delivering the planter allowed Robert to purchase the very house where he had been enslaved as a child, a powerful symbol of his transformation from property to property owner. As the war progressed, Robert became increasingly involved in politics and education. He taught himself to read and write, understanding that education was the key to lasting freedom for formerly enslaved people. When the war ended, he was perfectly positioned to play a major role in Reconstruction. After the Civil War, Robert Smalls threw himself into politics with the same determination he had shown during his escape. In 1868, he was elected to the South Carolina House of Representatives, and in 1874, he won a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives, becoming one of the first black congressmen from South Carolina. As a legislator, Robert focused on education and civil rights. He was instrumental in establishing South Carolina's public school system, arguing that education was essential for the success of formerly enslaved people. He also fought against discriminatory laws and worked to protect the voting rights that Black Americans had gained during Reconstruction. One of his most significant legislative achievements was his work on what would eventually become the Civil Rights Act of 1875. Robert argued passionately on the House floor that separate facilities could never be equal, an argument that wouldn't be accepted by the Supreme Court until the Brown versus Board decision in 1954, nearly 80 years later. Robert served 5 terms in Congress, but his political career faced increasing challenges as Reconstruction ended and Jim Crow laws began to take hold across the South. White supremacist groups used violence and intimidation to suppress black voting, and gradually the political gains of Reconstruction were rolled back. Despite these setbacks, Robert continued to fight for his community. He served in various local and state positions, always advocating for education, economic opportunity, and civil rights. He also became a successful businessman, investing in real estate and other ventures. Robert Smalls died in 1915 at the age of 75 in the same house in Beaufort where he had once been enslaved. His life spanned one of the most transformative periods in American history, from slavery through Reconstruction to the early Jim Crow era. But here's what makes Robert Smalls' story so remarkable. It's not just about one man's incredible courage, though his escape from Charleston Harbor was certainly that. It's about intelligence, determination, and the refusal to accept the limitations that society tried to impose. Robert Smalls proved that enslaved people weren't the passive victims that many historical narratives suggest. He was a strategic thinker, a natural leader, and a skilled politician who understood that true freedom required not just physical escape, but political power and economic independence. His story also highlights the crucial role that Black Americans played in their own liberation. While we often focus on white abolitionists and Union generals, Robert Smalls reminds us that enslaved people were active participants in the fight for freedom, using their intimate knowledge of Southern society to aid the Union cause. Today, there are schools, ships, and monuments named after Robert Smalls, but his story remains largely unknown to most Americans. In an era where we're re-examining our understanding of American history, Robert Smalls represents the kind of complex, heroic figure whose story deserves to be told and retold. From slave to ship captain to congressman, Robert Smalls lived a life that challenges our assumptions and inspires us to think about what's possible when courage meets opportunity. His legacy reminds us that heroes come in all forms, and sometimes the most powerful act of resistance is simply refusing to accept the world as it is and working to make it what it should be. And that's the incredible story of Robert Smalls, from enslaved person to war hero to congressman. This man literally changed the course of American history, and yet most people have never heard his name. That's exactly why this channel exists, to bring these amazing stories to light. What did you think about Robert Smalls' story? Drop a comment below and let me know which part shocked you the most. Was it the daring escape, his time as a ship captain, or maybe his political career? If this story blew your mind like it did mine, smash that like button. It really helps the algorithm share these important stories with more people. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell because we've got so many more incredible unsung heroes to explore. Speaking of which, who should we cover next? I'm thinking maybe Ida B. Wells or Percy Julian. Let me know in the comments who you want to hear about. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, where we'll uncover another amazing story that deserves to be heard. Until then, keep learning and keep sharing these stories, because history belongs to all of us.